Hello and welcome, family. It's Kevin Orris doing a live interview today with Nicola Delonzo, and we're going deep in king and queen consciousness, all things relationship, masculine and feminine dynamics, polarity, and leadership. So I'd love for you, if you're watching this video later, to type in replay here, type in one thing you're grateful for, type in where you're tuning in from. Love to hear from you. And we're gonna bring Nicola on now, and it's gonna work. If you're on here, Nicola, see if you can type a comment and then I can add you. There we go. Finally. Work. Gotta love old Facebook. Here we go.
Hi, Kevin.
There we go.
We made it.
We did it. You're sideways. Can you go vertical?
Let me see what I can do here. Let me see if I can.
There you go.
Okay. Let's see if I can. I don't know how to prop it up. All these technological challenges. I wonder if I do that.
Well, now you're upside down.
Oh, that's not helpful. Okay. New to me. I've never done this with my phone.
Yeah, it used to be easy. I've done so many lives. I don't know if it's a new update or what. I've never seen it do this and be so finicky, but here we are.
Here we are. Technology is changing.
How are you?
I'm doing pretty good this morning, to be honest. My phone is plugged in. This is why I'm having a trouble. Okay, let me move that. Okay, I think we got it.
We got it. Sweet.
Oh, nope, we don't. Yeah, good times.
So I'm really excited to have you, and thank you so much for doing this with me. I've been following your work for some time now, a few years, and
oh my gosh, okay.
Your writing is so powerful. I love your posts, your voice online. It's just one of the ones that cuts through a lot of the bullshit and really resonates, I know, with a lot of people. And so, Nicola, for the people that don't know you and your work, how would you describe what you do?
Thank you so much, Kevin. Thanks for what you said. That means a lot to me. You know, it's really interesting. So I work with men, and I'm not a big fan of the word coach, but it's kind of the word for the industry. But I work with men who are ready to come into kingship. So these men who feel it happening within themselves already. They're already reached a certain level of maturity. There's something that's happening within them and they know it, and looking for guidance, someone to work with them as this path is unfolding, because as you know, it's not an easy path. It's a path of death, initiation, trial, tribulation, pain, all of the stuff. And of course, unbelievable beauty and grace and growth and power and potency and all of the stuff. So that's what I do.
That's amazing. And for the folks that may not know, or I'd love to hear in your own words, what is kingship, or what does it mean to become a king?
Yeah, there's so many ways to tackle the word. One way is to look at it through the archetypes: lover, magician, warrior. When all three of those have been initiated, then king online. Another way, and also I want to add in father. The father, I feel like the father frequency with a man, that's just, king is not present without that particular energy. Another way we can look at king, like when a man has cleared his consciousness of all other influence, right? So it's not that he's in direction or hearing or listening to other people. But that when it's time to make that decision about what am I going to do, how am I going to do it, it's his consciousness and his alone that's making that decision.
Hmm. Yeah, I love that. So that's how I would maybe define sovereignty. You're really anchoring your conscious will or intention in leadership, which
Mm-hmm.
kingship for me is all about leadership,
Yeah.
and doing that outside of being in someone else's kingdom, right? You have to forge your own, and that's a big journey. And I certainly don't pretend to, I know I'm on that path, but there's stages, right? There's the princehood and there's the knighthood and there's, layers and layers in that domain of initiation. And what types of men do you mostly work with, Nicola? Is it professional men that are in business, leadership, community leader positions, or you're working also with just maybe men that are manifesting this energetically but don't necessarily have an empire, let's say?
Yeah, both. Exactly. Exactly. It's for anyone who really feels that call and is ready and knows it deep in his bones that something's happening to me. Whether I know or not, something's happening to me, and frequently they do know. And like reading the posts, not only mine but also other people sharing, like, oh, that's it, and that's the thing that I dig into. And also I'd say it is a call to leadership for sure. And how do we do this life in the best way for everyone? It's men who they feel the call to something bigger than themselves. There's some service, there's some mission that is deeper than just going about your own life. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but some men are particularly called in a very deep way.
Totally. And what are some of the signs that a man might be experiencing in his home life, his relationship, his career that are telling him that he's in this death process of initiation?
Yeah, that dark night of the soul experience. Um, it could be anger. It could be lots of emotion. It could be lots of energy. Simply like, oh my gosh, I feel like I'm on fire. I feel like I carry lightning. Um, and it could be everything isn't working anymore. Everything I did to function, and this is how I live my life. All of those things are systematically falling apart. That's when you know God really has you on his radar.
Right. Amazing. And this
Yeah.
this to me is it comes for every man. I
Mm-hmm.
don't actually see how you could avoid this without great peril, right? And great, harm to you and your loved ones, because in the maturation process from boy to man and then from man on the king journey, you have to come to a place of stripping away everything that's not you. And so really it's about deconditioning, right? Is that something you see a lot? Is mainly it's like actually letting go of all the false senses of self?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Uh, Definitely identity death, right? So it's like every single thing that you thought made you important or something in this world comes up and asks to be put in the fire at some point. And that is that excruciating dark night of the soul feeling. It's like all of the places that you thought made you something, or for some reason, this is why I'm important in this world. All of those things have to be given up to God at some point, so that there's the death rebirth, right? That's not the end of the cycle. It's not that you just give those things up and then there's a rebirth, and the rebirth is always something so much greater. It's something so much bigger, and it might include those elements that you knew of yourself before, but they have all been upgraded. They're all now pointing toward something bigger, a greater goal, something more than what you could have done in the past.
Mm, right. And for you, Nicola, what is your read on current events? Is there a war against masculinity? And why is there so much confusion in the space around modern manhood and modern kingship?
Yeah, I definitely think there's agenda against masculinity in men. Absolutely. And I mean, not to get to conspiracy theory, but truly, like, if you want to rule a people, disable their men. This is how you do it. Take them down at the knees. And that is really what's happening in culture. And it's making a shit show out of our relationships, out of the way we function in the world. Women are exhausted and angry. Men are like, what is going on? The children are confused about who and what they are. It's a mess. It's an absolute mess. And you can see it happening. And there's a normalization of all of this. There's this like really fascinating, uncomfortable push to get us all to feel like this is what's normal. And yet, what is happening in homes, across the world? People are so uncomfortable. People are so unhappy. Relationships aren't going well. Work life is, I mean, people aren't in their mission and purpose, men specifically. It's hitting all of us at every level. And I do believe it's specifically happening because we are so much more controllable when our men are disempowered.
Yep. You see this across time. The Roman Empire understood this when they're conquering indigenous tribes, that they have to break the warriors and the chieftains first, and then they can actually traumatize and manipulate the whole society, because those are the defenders, right? The guardians that bring order to keep chaos at bay, right? And holding the codes, the laws, the structure. And this is what the masculine is really good at. And, I think ultimately, love wins, humanity wins. You can't stop the human spirit. You can't stop evolution. You can't turn back time. So I think those of us that are watching this, aware of it, doing our work, putting the dead wood in the fire, we're going to come through. And what is your message to women, Nicola, being, very aware of, I'm sure the men you're working with, most of them, or if not all of them, are in, partnerships or in relationship to the feminine. How do women, how can they support and understand this process of masculinity and kingship?
Such a good question. Well, the number one, do not mother him. Number one.
Bingo.
This is a hard one for women because we are so conditioned to mother. I mean, it is like in our bones that this is what we do, and especially when our men are in pain. But a man in pain is a man that's about to grow big time. Let him be in pain. Let him suffer and let him die. That is what has to happen. It is a death rebirth cycle. And when she comes in there and tries to mother that, it's actually possible for a woman to take a man's pain away. It's possible for her to do that and to take it on herself. What happens in that is that she now is processing pain that is not hers, and he is not going to get the gift of that pain in the end. He's not going to go through the death process. And what you end up having is an angry man and an exhausted woman. That right there. Do not mother him. When you see him in pain, let him be in pain. Let that be. Let that process unfold. It's like you're kind of saying, I believe that you have what it takes to make this through. And that's deeply disempowering. So that's number one. Number two would be, I don't know that women really understand the power that they have in their man's lives. As far as communicating what she sees, it's amazing to her. Tell him what you see that blows you away. Why do you love this man? What is it about him that makes him important to you? What is it about him that makes you go, oh my gosh, incredible? Especially in this climate where we have so much coming at our men, trying to destroy them on a daily basis. I mean, stories like a man tries to hold a door for a woman. She says, I can get that myself. Like, so our men, women, when you think about this, our men are out there on a daily basis doing what they can to do what they do in the best way they know how. And here we have women who are attacking even when a man is being chivalrous. Like, of course you can open that door. Of course you can. But There's something beautiful about that. That's like proper placement of energy. He is in a space of, I'm holding this for you. It's a chivalrous move. It's beautiful. It's like it's good for everyone involved, for him, for her, for children to see that. It's good for all of us. So speaking into him that way, that you see, like what you see in your man that you find amazing, tell him that. Tell him. It's an incredible, the power of that is incredible.
Mm, so powerful. Such a simple symbiotic relationship of the feminine to the masculine. And this brings me to my next question, which I know you've written about, is, every king, every great man, has a great woman, his oracle. What is the oracular wisdom of the feminine, and what does that look like?
Such a good question. Also, I actually trained in oracular abilities, and it's really quite fascinating. When we look back at history, relationship of the oracle and the men was like there were no oracles without the men. The women were the oracles and the men were there not only as support, but they would record what was said by the oracles. They also served as protectors for her, because she's going to go into the realm of the mystery. She's going under the veil. She's going to a place that is not seen by the light of day. And so someone needs to be protecting her body, her energy, everything. And so men were there to protect her as she went into these spaces and places. So the feminine's oracular ability is there to, she kind of fine tunes his like thrust and drive. Like, okay, I've got this, he feels this, I go out there, I'm on my mission, I'm on my purpose, I'm doing my thing, and I want to go out there. And she's like, hey, like turn it just a little bit this way and try that, right? Like, because her feeling nature is where her genius resides. So when she shares with him the truth of what she feels, that helps him to fine tune and calibrate his brain. Like, okay, like let me just turn the dial a little bit this way, and I'm gonna try over there. Or she's like, hey, did you notice that there's this thing? Like, check that out. He's like, ooh, because her senses, she's aware of other energies coming at her. And this is the genius of the two of them together then. Right, like his power is, his genius is in his mind, like the magician aspect, right? This is where that full-blown shows up in a man, and in all the archetypes, but certainly the mind, and hers is in the feeling state. So her experiences, her sensational experience are, that's where her genius is. And when she shares that with him, she can fine tune his machine.
Yes, this is the symbiosis of nature, and try as they may, these folks who want to de-emphasize or just destroy the definition of man and woman, right, and invert masculine and feminine, that it's so hard to do because it's literally against natural law, and natural law is king, penetrative force, power, that magician. Here's mission. I'm going to solve the problem, and the oracle, the queen, is adjusting, guiding, sensing, and her intuition is informing that field, which has always been the seat of all power and prosperity and fertility in all civilizations that understood this, right? You go back to the Orphic mysteries, you go back to the Egyptian mysteries, etc. And so that's actually what I see emerging, Nicola. I'm curious for you, like, are you aware of, and are you like tracking, more of these couples coming together and bringing that co-creative power online?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I really feel like even in the climate of all this attack on our masculine and getting our women to be super masculine, to take that on, there is an unbelievable undercurrent of couples that are coming together in this beautiful way, true co-creating, just like you said, ways that are, it is more powerful than the sum of their parts. That's the truth of it. When a couple comes together in that way, with the love, with the united missions, the understanding and the respect and the preservation of the relationship, right? Like, I'm not going to bring my wounded, painful stuff and dump that in the pot between you and I. I'm not going to do that. Right? When we have emotional maturity around the way we experience our lives and what we bring when we come together, there miracles can happen and do happen.
Yes. And that's what's going to create the environment for the next generation to actually be raised without the trauma and the imprints that we're all breaking, basically.
Yes.
That's it.
That's it. That's exactly it. And that it's so funny you said that, because I am so with you on that. It's like all of this work, everything we do, the reason we're doing it is it's not only for ourselves. Yes, absolutely. I mean, for our own growth and maturity, but in the grand scheme of things, it's for the children. It's like, this is our legacy, what we leave behind. Every single one of us is going to have wounding and trauma happen to some degree, just by the very nature of this is how a soul learns. But what's happening right now, or at least our generation, we had to take on all of the wounding of our families, the history, the intergenerational trauma stuff, because their generations didn't have access to healing. They didn't know how to do, like, the language that you and I are speaking right now didn't exist for our parents' generation. None of it was there. So we are the ones who said, it stops with me. I will not pass these wounds forward. So the children from this point forward who are coming through families who understand what you and I are talking about right now, they're going to receive their own soul lessons, but they're not going to have this huge, heavy burden and weight of the past that is so enormous. And I personally cannot wait to see these kids grow up. Like, what would this be like? I mean, we don't really know, because almost all of humanity is so traumatized at this point.
Exactly. And this to me is part of where science and magic, I think it's Arthur C. Clarke, where like any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. And like science is just probing at the edges of what's known, and is obviously heavily limited by a reductionist materialist perspective, which, is absurd on some levels, and also is great for creating things like iPhones and, cell phone towers and stuff. So we can be grateful for it. But these children, their epigenetic imprint is going to be cleared. So literally, when you heal trauma, when you cathart, when you go into ecstasis, when you have a healing, force move through your body, God, spirit, your genome is changing. Your literal seed as a man is changing. The literal eggs in a woman are changing because of epigenetics. We know this now. And so those children are literally going to have new DNA. Obviously, they always have new DNA. They're always the newest model. But I really see, these children are going to manifest abilities, insights, powers, their oracular ability, their kingship abilities. I mean, they're going to be leading communities we can't even imagine today.
Exactly. I'm 100% with you. And this is the part that gets me so excited, because I'm like, what would it be like? What will they bring? What will they bring? I almost feel like it's going to be beyond what we could imagine right now, because we are the ones who are these bridges between the past, trauma and wounding, and delivering these children who can actually function out this huge weight of the past on their shoulders.
Totally.
I can't wait.
That's why I'm such an optimist. No matter how dark things get with all of the dystopian visions of the future that are being slung about, the village of humanity with men and women that are activating these abilities and raising these children, like, they'll be so untouchable by any of the distortions that, it might look very weird, and it might, we can't even imagine it, but I'm bullish on the future for sure. Nicola, I'm curious, how do you view social media and like your digital platform? Because I mean, you're writing a lot, you're sharing a lot. I'm sure you get a lot of folks that are very into what you're sharing, and also people that are very triggered by what you're sharing. And do you have a philosophy or a principle around that?
Handling when someone comes at you in a negative
Sure.
way. Each one I handle differently, and it really comes at what's the energy I feel when I read the comment. sometimes there's something really instrumental to share. Like maybe they brought something up and I'm like, that's a really good point. And actually, maybe it wasn't as clear in my post as I thought it was. And so here's a great place to clarify some aspect of something that I've written, because it might just be a simple misunderstanding. Um, and sometimes if it's just super negative and just downright derogatory, I'm done. Like I have nothing for that. I'm not going to entertain that for a minute. I mean, I even have some, and this doesn't happen nearly as much anymore, but at first it was like, how dare you as a woman? Like, what do you think you're doing working with men, you know? And I was like, gosh, you know, I I honestly, this wasn't something that I woke up one day and said, I'm going to work with men. I actually received a command, like, you work with men. And I was like, oh, I, oh, okay. So there's something really interesting about that, because I'm like, it's off my shoulders. I didn't come up with this. This wasn't my own thing. So when I received attack from that angle, like, how dare you as a woman? Like, what do you think you're doing? I just delete it, because I'm like, this is my God-given mission. I can't, like, I didn't make this up. So every single one, it really depends on, do I feel like there's something valuable in this that I can highlight, and maybe what they're bringing as they're pressing against my, maybe I can bring something even more out that's like, oh wow, you know, where it becomes an even greater message. That's happened many times. But if it's just downright negative and there's no value, it's just somebody was bored and they want to lash out, you're done. I have no time for that.
Totally. I can resonate with that a lot. Um, there's something really beautiful about the way you speak about the consciousness
Mm.
that the king brings. And what are some of the qualities that you when you work with these men that you want to evoke? Like, what is their presence? What does their consciousness bring for the listeners that maybe are still feeling the energy?
Yeah, and especially in this climate where men are taking such a huge pounding, it's so important to talk about this, because when men are empowered, women are safe. When men are empowered, women are covered. And this is exactly what women are complaining about right now. Exactly the thing. They're scared because of low level masculine. Absolutely. There's no doubt that's out there. There's no denying. I've encountered it. We all have. Um, but when men are empowered, when a man comes into king, I mean, his no alone is revolutionary. Like, she might not like it at first, but what ends up happening in her system is she starts to trust him in a way that she's never trusted another man when he has that empowered no, because that, him in his kingship and laying down law, right? So this isn't law about, like, how is the world going to run. This is law about what is happening in his kingdom. What does he allow in, and what does he not allow in? When a man has a no, like, when especially a king, the power of that no is exponential, because what it does is it says that the consciousness of the energy that's coming out of the kingdom is not allowed to create. It's
Mm.
not sit down at the table, put its energy on there, and try to create with anybody else in that kingdom. Absolutely not. Um, so an empowered man has a no. The king has a no, and it's really powerful. And actually, it, even if she doesn't like it at first, the truth is that it ends up being a turn on, because that piece where when he says no, she experiences the level of safety. That's when she can go into turn on. Safety is huge. It's for, and it's everything, as far as her attractiveness. So, and one of the other qualities of the king that isn't always talked about, but I love to share, the king is actually a blessing for the people.
Mm-hmm.
So if you've ever had that experience when an really empowered man, and you would call him a king, comes and shares with you something that he sees about you and is like, hey, Kevin, I see this in you and you are amazing. Here's all the reasons why I think that you are special. that conversation is something that stays with you the rest of your life, and it changes the way you see yourself. It changes who you believe you are and what you. I had this happen to me, and I will never forget the conversation. I will never forget it. I will never forget the man. I know exactly where we were. I know exactly what was happening. I couldn't tell you what I was wearing, but I definitely like the details of it all, right? And what he said to me will stay with me forever. Stay with me forever, even though it was in the context of work at that time, and I was a general manager for an IT company back then, and I don't do that work anymore. But what he shared with me has never left me. It almost put a crown on my head in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
So when a king calls you out in a beautiful way, it changes who you are, and he's a blessing. He is a blessing to the people. And then also his law and governance, because the law and governance is not just about fattening his own purse. It's about ensuring that every single person in the kingdom is thriving.
Right.
He knows that every person around him, when his people are thriving, so too is he.
Yes.
So too is he. So there's this real fear around, like one of the biggest things that I get from men is like, Nicola, I'm kind of worried about becoming a king because I've heard so many horrible stories. We see all our world leaders who are men who are operating in ways that are like horrifying.
Which they're in the tyrant, right? They're in the shadow form of the king, many of them.
Yeah, that's exactly it. That's exactly what I was going to say. It's the tyrant. It's the tyrannical man. And what is the tyrant all about? His problem is he doesn't know how to get his needs met. He doesn't know how to get his needs met. He is, so many of us, when we were talking about that intergenerational trauma, like so many of us, we have almost formulated a separate personality on the side because of the woundedness that we received. One of the things that happens when someone says, when you experience a need, it can happen so fast you don't even realize it. But the need is true. Like, I need food. And instead of just saying I need food, we're over here going, oh, what do you think about, why don't we go do this thing? Like, you might say something entirely off that, like, your brain has so quickly mapped out a pathway to get food, but without just stating that you need food. I mean, that's a very simple example, but the point is that the tyrant does that. He creates this manipulative strategy to get his need met instead of just understanding and knowing that his needs are actually inspirational, because that's the truth. When we share our needs, they're inspirational.
Yeah, and they can be used to get the needs met for the whole kingdom. And that's the power of the Synex as opposed to the tyrant. Is the wise king, the benevolent king, will use his own drive to empower the land and his oracle as well. And that's what we want to see in the world. And I think, again, a generation of those leaders in president, prime minister, high admiral, chancellor positions would change everything. And I think people's wounding around the tyrant, it's got to play out. And that's why we're getting a master class on that here in 2022 and beyond. So yeah, I'm again an optimist here. And Nicola, if people want to work with you or people are really interested in what you're doing, how can they get in touch with you and what's alive in your queendom?
Yeah. The best way, just hit me up in Messenger right here in Facebook. Just shoot me a message saying you're interested in my work. I'm right in the middle of redoing my whole website, doing everything on the back end, and so none of that is functional. So just send me a messenger. Yeah, and there's programs of every size for men that, and actually upcoming, for the first time, I'm working on a program for women, and it's going to be a program for women who want to work with men, and then I'll have a separate program for women who want to be their most empowered self on the other side of men.
Beautiful. We need lots more of that for sure.
Yeah, we do.
Well, Nicola, thank you so much for coming on and sharing with me. This has been amazing. And anyone watching, of course, now or later, go follow this woman and reach out to her if you're ready to take this journey. And of course, tag someone in this video that could receive some of these codes, because we know how powerful they are.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Kevin. I really appreciate sharing with you. I love your work. I love what you're doing.
Thanks so much, Nicola. Blessed evening, morning, wherever you are in the world, everyone. Go out and empower those kings. Bless their life. Let's go. Till
Do
next
it.
time.